Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking FPGAs. We're going to talk about a new one coming from SuperScalar. This is the K10 Plus. So this is a new variation of the K10. So it's a little bit cheaper. That does make it more appealing. We're going to talk about the differences. We're going to look at the specs, compare it to the competition, see how it stacks up, right? So if that sounds good guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So before we fully get started though, just want to go over a few things if you are considering getting this thing. Number one, it's going to be rough around the edges. Okay, we saw this thing debut officially for sale to the public last spring, right? So last like April, May, prior to the Caspa ASICs, right? We did see the SuperScalar K10. And what we saw was that, again, these are old chips. They've been heavily used, most likely were from like private farms. And they are continuing to sell this guy, and it is now becoming popular again because of the new bit streams that are now available, right? So at that time, it was just Caspa, but then now recently, not recently, like as about 6 months ago, they released it for Radiant, Alephium, now Karlsen, and Ironfish, right? So a lot of good things, a lot of good bit streams that you are able to use it on, but factor in, again, this guy is going to be rough around the edges, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to use. So if you're not a tinkerer or you're not a person that's comfortable with like opening it up, having to mess with it, having to flash the different software, flash the different GUIs, flash the updates, this thing's probably not going to be for you. Okay, so the GUI, very similar for you guys who have the M2 or have looked into the M2. It'll be a very similar story, right? A lot of people did get dud units. They did get a unit with a bad board. They did have to RMA it. They did get replacements. It does seem though, at least on that end, they are more responsive. With the M2, the main savior for us was Coastal actually. If it wasn't for Coastal, we would be SOL, right? Pretty much got ghosted from the manufacturer right off the rip, right? Even tried emailing them like basic questions. No response to anything. Luckily though, a lot of us did get a bad board, myself included, and Coastal was able to set up RMA for us and we were able to get replacements, right? So very similar there, but at least again, in this case, it does seem like they are more customer service friendly, I guess you could say. So at least they are doing that process. But just keep that in mind, guys. It's not going to be super easy to use, super basic, at least not now. It does seem like they are trying to develop it. They are trying to make it more user-friendly. They are trying to get it to that point, right? So pretty cool on that end. One other big thing to consider, if you're considering specifically this guy, are the bit streams that are available now. So we'll go through the profitability. We're going to talk about them, but just understand that out of the 4 current profitable ones, 2 of them are going to be leaving most likely within the next few months, okay? One is going to be Karlsen, which is going to switch over to Fish Hash, right? Ironically, Ironfish also is going to be going to Fish Hash, but it does seem like Karlsen will be going there first. Okay, so out of those 4, you're going to be losing 2 pretty soon, right? And then the other huge thing to consider, a lot of rumors going on about Alephium and Radiant ASICs, right? Whether or not they pan out, we'll see, but we do know that they are eventually going to come. It's just a matter of how soon. Or pretty much when, right? Is it going to be in the next like 2-3 months, or would it be 6 months? Will it be the end of the year? Who knows? But we do know they are coming, so kind of keep those things in mind, right? All right, so let's start talking about this thing. So where we got our info from was Jingle Mining, actually. So they did release a video recently talking about it specifically. They didn't mention any of the specs in the video, but it is on their website. They do have it for sale, so we'll talk about it, right? So they did become an exclusive partner for the K10 Plus. Essentially, they're like the main distributor for it. I believe possibly might be the only one selling it now currently. I don't know if it's an exclusive deal with them, but they do have it. We'll go over the specs here. It is on their website. The big standout is the price difference, right? So the regular K10 is $5,200. This guy's coming in at $4,300. So definitely more appealing. Now though, because it is cheaper, there's going to be a performance hit, right? Luckily though, it scales perfectly. So the price is 18% less. The performance is also 18% less. And it is the same efficiency across the board. Okay, so what it does seem like happened, the K10 has 12 chips in it. It seems like this guy has 10 chips, right? Most likely the same chips because it scales down perfectly, right? So pretty interesting, pretty intriguing. My biggest question for this would be is if these are going to be new units now. Okay, we do know that those K10s been getting some pretty beat up units, right? A lot of guys who've been getting them. Super dusty, burn marks, probably super old, kind of like refurbed units. And a lot of people have been getting broken boards, right? So they've been getting it with maybe one or two that are working. They've been having to send the other one back. It does seem like they've been responsive though about doing so, right? So at least you do have that plus in case you are in that boat. But again, that's time you're losing when it's very limited in the amount of time you can mine certain algos, right? So just keep that in mind. So the question here I would have for them is if this is a new run, right? That would make it even more intriguing, okay? So as we look at the price, again, it's $4,300. Let's look at the specs. So again, these are identical to the K10, just 18% less. The efficiency is pretty much identical across the board on the four main ones that they're advertising. So Alephium's about 37 gigahash at 1,458 watts. Radiant is at 22 gigahash for 1,236 watts. Karlsen 32 gigahash at about 1,500 watts, and then Ironfish 332 gigahash at about 1,400 watts. So pretty interesting. We'll go over the profitability here in a second. Again, when we compare it to the K10, it's identical as just, again, 18% less. Most likely what it seems, it's going from 12 chips down to 10 chips in this guy, right? The main competition that it has would be the Osprey, right? So the Osprey, the E300, the K10 Plus has them be in the price department as well as the overall power department, right? So the E300 is going to run you 5,200 for 20. We're going to compare with the Alephium for 21 gigahash with the Alephium at the max setting versus the 37 gigahash here, right? The big glaring difference though is going to be the efficiency. The efficiency is definitely going to be better on the Osprey. You have to see if it's going to be worth it to you for that difference in price though, right? So there's a lot more density. It's nearly double, right, with the K10 Plus. So just kind of something to factor in there. So overall, bang for the buck wise, my personal preference, because I kind of have a good comparison, because that guy back there, that is the E100. So that is a single board version of this guy, right? So it's a very similar comparison to the E100 and the Moltminer M2. Right, it's very similar price point. The E100 when I purchased it was $1,600. The M2 was $1,900 and change, I believe. It was right under $2,000. So a very similar thing. The M2 had a lot more density versus the efficiency win of the Osprey. Right. To me, what ended up being the definite better buy was the M2 just because of the overall power difference. Right. So yes, it wasn't as efficient, but it was efficient enough to the point where that density factor was very worthwhile, right? And in fact, like kind of not comparing, but kind of having both of them was able to kind of like maximize it, right? So one of them gave me density, the other one gave me efficiency. Kind of putting them together is what kept me profitable pretty much all of last year, right? So something to kind of note there. But me, the personal preference would be definitely the density factor of the SuperScalar, right? Another big difference, though, to consider is the quality difference. One thing I will say about the Osprey, quality is on point. That guy has been up and running, zero issues, period. That thing just runs, right? I randomly reboot it like every couple of months. It literally stays up, zero issues at all whatsoever. The M2, on the other hand, quality was not as hot. I did have a board go down. Initially, it was just a few chips down. Then the whole board went down. Luckily, I was able to get it RMA'd. But once that was repaired, though, it has been chugging along. I have not had, ever since that repair, the ones that were working, and now that I did get a working board, it's been chugging along just fine, right? But the customer service level with like Osprey, I will say is also on point, right? A good comparison for the two, go into their discords, right? If you go into like Osprey's Discord, you'll see people ask questions, immediate responses. SuperScalar, you'll see people complaining about the issues and what's been going on, and kind of like the responses going there. That's a very good like insight if you're interested in getting either one, right? But for me personally, the preference probably would be with the K10 just because of the density factor, right? We'll compare it here towards the end. Some of the vendors are Jingle Mining, right? Jingle Mining does have both this guy and the other one. Another vendor is like Coastal. Coastal does have a lot of these. So just keep the keep the thing in mind that if you are getting any of these, get it from a vendor that's going to have customer service or that'll do the right thing. Like, for example, Coastal, that would probably, even if it's more expensive, if I'm able to get it through them, I would most likely try to get it through them just because I have more confidence in them being able to get a replacement board. Because again, like we talked about, these things are going to be rough around the edges. You can even see it in this picture here. This is the one from the RPM guy way back last April, and he even showed us, right? It was one of those beat up units. And even some of you guys who got one recently, also fairly beat up, like kind of refurbed units, right? So keep that in mind, keep that in consideration, that whoever you purchase it from, make sure that it's somebody who you're going to have trust in being able to communicate them if you have a dud board, because it's either you trying to go through them or them going and doing that work for you, right? So factor that in. Now let's look at profitability, right? And this is where things get pretty good. So on Alephium, again, we mentioned it was a 37 gigahash, 1,458 watts. And this is at a 11-cent kilowatt hour. Your power cost is almost $4 a day. Your revenue is $10.68 currently. So a profit of nearly $7 a day. Okay, so it's pretty good, especially considering how high the freaking difficulty has gotten on Alephium, right? The hash rate has been through the roof. So this would be a good way to accrue. Although realistically, would I be mining Alephium? Yes and no, right? Would I be mining it to stack? For me personally, no. What I would be doing is probably going on like unmineable or just swapping out for something else, only because a lot of the run up is there. But again, if you already have your bags and this is the next one in line, then it's definitely a good way to get it, right? Next on the list, this is going to be for Radiant. Radiant. 22 gigahash at 1,236 watts. Power cost is $326. Your revenue $746. Your overall profitability is $4.20, right? So not too bad, but this is what I would be mining instead, right? Halving is coming close. Although, yes, the fiat value is less, your yield is going to be a lot more, right? Again, there's a lot more upside with Radiant. So between the halving and the fact that if you think these ASIC possibilities are going to come soon, that would probably be the one for me, right? Next on the list is Karlsen, and if you were to get one now, this would actually be number one because, again, this one's likely to switch algos potentially within weeks, right? So currently, it's also actually the most profitable right now. Power cost is nearly $4, $3.92. Revenue's nearly $12 worth of revenue right now, right? $7.85 profit. Okay, but again, keep in mind, you're going to lose this one literally within weeks. Even if you order this one, it's potential that it might switch algos before you even get it, right? And then kind of the same story with Iron. Theirs is a little more murky as far as the implementation date. It could be March, April, right? So sometime fairly soon. You have a little bit more time, but not a whole lot. Power cost about the same, $368. Revenue, $848 for a $4.80 profit, right? So just some things to keep in mind. Again, the play here isn't to look at it like, oh man, the ROI is forever. Like if you're going to be concerned with that, this is also not for you, right? This is definitely very speculative, very limited when you can mine. And kind of the play here is more of a long-term thing. It's definitely like, as these bit streams come available, mine whatever it is, swap into it if you don't like it, but you're going to mine that, and then on to the next coin, right? So currently, yes, these are the only ones here. I'm sure they are working on others. Wouldn't be surprised to see like them do Kylecoin, for example, or one of these others be like Etika, right, which did just get released on Osprey. So there are other coins there that you're just going to have to swap to them. So whether you may like them or not, kind of doesn't matter in a way, because even if you don't like it or isn't one you want to stack, just swap it for whatever you do. But keep in mind, that's kind of the play. It's hopefully a long-term play. Hopefully this thing does last, and you're able to mine it and just hope that you're able to get on the next one that pops off, right? So, again, the biggest appeal for me with this guy was similar with the appeal with the M2 is the density factor. Okay, so you're looking at it like, oh, well, it's pretty good, but it's not that good. But when you compare it to the amount of GPUs required to meet that level of power, that's where it becomes immensely appealing. Okay, in the case of a 3070, we're going to do this comparison with the Alephium. This is the exact same comparison I did when I was doing the little review and talking about the M2. It's the density factor, right? So if you have a 3070, you would need 28 of them. 28 of them, 3070s, to meet what the K10 Plus is going to do, right? So 28 of them is going to bring you right under 37 gigahash, right? And it's going to waste a lot more power. Okay, you're going to be at 2,632 versus the K10 Plus, you're going to be at 1,458, right? So pretty massive difference in the power consumption, right? So that to me is where it becomes extremely appealing, because if we bust out a calculator and 28, let's say the average price currently is 300, it's $8,400 worth of GPU. So it's about half the cost, and then you got to factor in the efficiency gain. Okay, obviously you're going to have a lot more versatility with those GPUs, but that's kind of the mindset I had with like the M2, for example, right? It's that pure density factor. Even comparing it with the latest and greatest, right? So the 3070 was kind of the benchmark. Even comparing it with the 4090. So this is a 4090. 6 of them would give you 39 gigahash, so 6 of them would be a tad bit over, right? 39 gigahash versus 37, but fairly close. And it's even more efficient than a 4090. Okay, the 4090 would be 2,166 watts. In comparison with that guy, again, it's 1,458. Okay, so even comparing it to 4090s, because again, each one, give or take after taxes, is about 2K, be about $12,000 with the 4090s to do that. Okay, so that to me is where the real value is. Okay, again, if you're doing like ROI calculations, it's going to look horrible, and it kind of is in a sense. It's definitely a spec play. So, on that end, would I buy this guy? It's not a bad buy. For me personally though, no. Like I would have preferred, instead of them doing a 10-chip version, maybe doing an 8-chip version that instead was down like $3,200, $3,300. Then at that point, like the 2 to 3K range to me would be worth that roll of the dice. Okay, so it's up to you. You have to see, but again, don't. If you're gonna go here, it's kind of like buying GPUs right now. It's definitely a high spec play, and in a sense, like yes, the specs are better, the efficiency better, but it's more risk because it's gonna be based on the fact that whether or not you're gonna continue to get bit streams or not. Okay, again, it does seem like they're active. It does seem like they want to be here. They are doing partnerships. We'll talk about it, but realistically, the play is how confident do you feel that they're going to continue to release bit streams? Because again, it can happen where you may lose these now, you may lose whatever, and you may not get one for years, right? But it's one you keep in the closet, and if it becomes profitable again, you bust that thing out, right? Just like what happened with the M2, or another example right now, or even right now, just period, is like these old black miners, right? This F1 Plus came out in 2019. It's 5 years old, but this thing is still profitable, right? There is a bit stream for like Colengine, for example. It's not very profitable, right? But again, a lot of the time the key is to get these things while the yield is good, right? And stack coins. And then on to the next one, on to the next one, right? And that's kind of the play here with these, okay? So it just kind of depends on how long you think it's going to be before we get ASICs with like Alephium and Radiant, and like if they add new ones, right? So hopefully we continue to just get new projects on different algos, like maybe Pyrin. Maybe they're able to get Pyrin on there. Maybe they don't go GPU. Maybe they don't do like the fish hash thing. Who knows, right? But again, it's more definitely speculation. So that's why the cheaper I would be interested, right? So like with a little Molt miner for 2K, for me it was worth the risk, right? For the cost of 140.90, I get something that mines a ton more, right? So definitely a lot of speculation. Reality, it's not bad. Again, it's hard to say, right? Like right now, it does seem like we are potentially close, especially for like Alephium ASICs, right? We've seen the price activity, and it does seem like it's well on its way to getting there. Radiant, I know there's rumors of it, but realistically, we haven't had that pump yet. I would think that once we start seeing the pump, we could start getting a better potential timeline. Like even if they are testing, even if we do find, sources that, oh yeah, we definitely found one on the network, it's probably going to be a while till the price action meets where it needs to be at, right? They need to pump this thing because the volume ain't hot, the amount of profitability ain't hot. It's got to go up quite a bit significantly, right? So to me, that one is more primed and is in position and probably could handle it would be Alephium, right? We did have this recent pump, and so far it's been holding up, right? So if it were to stay in that range, then to me, those are all the signs there that it's probably going to be here sooner than later, right? So another thing to consider, shows that they are kind of trying. They do have a partnership with hero miners, right? So they did have a partnership with the pool, which is pretty big. Because like, for example, the M2, they had one with hash pool. They kind of made it so you're stuck with them. Luckily, Viper.net did make it possible so we can mine on their pool, and that's where most of us are at. But SuperScalar specifically reaching out and making that partnership with hero miners is kind of bullish that they are trying to keep this thing long term, right? So they are able to work with them. So as they release these bit streams, they do have a dedicated pool where the devs are gonna mess with it so they can get it to work properly, right? So that is a pretty big deal. We'll kind of keep our eye on to see how they continue, if they continue to release bit streams, like, because right now, realistically, they need to kind of get another one in the pipeline, because again, where they're going to be losing Karlsen and Ironfish literally in weeks, right? So realistically, maybe Colengine, which again I'm not a fan of, but it is one that's been on FPGA for quite a while. It would be profitable, so it would make sense to buy time as other ones come out. And another one that's like Etika, and then as these others come out, they're going to continue to release, right? So that's kind of, again, that's realistically, that's the play with these things, right? So high speculation, kind of a high price point. Yes, the 4300 is better, but me, realistically, personally, for me, 2 to 3K would be a price point. So ideally, perfect world, if they were to release an 8-chip version that was at 3K, I would potentially bite, right? So, but at this point, just because of the quality we've been getting, right? Again, if you go in the Discord, you'll see all the people complaining about taking pictures of the boards they got and having to send it back. Luckily, they've been on it though, but just understand what you're getting. Understand what you're getting yourself into and what it is as a whole, right? So just wanted to give you that update, guys. Let me know in the comments if any of you guys got one, if you're getting one, if you would consider this one now because the price of entry is a little bit cheaper. Do you have any other experience? If you have an M2, how's it been going? Have you had anything else die? What's been going on there? Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.